Navy pilots are asserting that over the past 2 years, they have had encounters with anomalous aerial vehicles on an almost daily basis. In fact, in one incident in the past, a pilot almost had a collision with one of these objects. Considering the stakes, is it really surprising that the sitting president has been asked about these anomalous aerial vehicles, this UFO presence? Well, such a question was actually asked today, and here's a transcript of it in which Donald Trump conveys his thoughts on the UFO presence. George Stephanopoulos asks President Trump, "Before we go, one of the things you have as president is the access to all the information in the world, all the mysteries out there. Now, I was just struck in the last couple weeks for reading more and more reports of Navy pilots seeing lots and lots of UFOs. Have you been briefed on that? What do you think?" I have. I think it's probably, I want them to think whatever they think. They do say, I've seen and I've read and I've heard, and I did have one very brief meeting on it, but people are saying they are seeing UFOs. Do I believe it? Not particularly, Stephanopoulos asks. Do you think you'd know if there were evidence of extraterrestrials? Well, I think our great pilots would know, and some of them really see things that are a little bit different than in the past, so we're going to see. But we'll watch it. You'll be the first to know. Now, Trump basically gave mixed messages. On the one hand, he said, do I believe it? Not particularly. On the other hand, he said that our great pilots would know whether or not this technology is of non-human origin. Here is what the number one witness so far as pilots go, had to say about what he believes is the origin of the Tic Tac UAP from November 2004.
So bottom line, what do you think this was?
I believe, as do the other folks that were on the flight, that when we visually saw it, that it was something not from this world.
Do I believe that all presidents have been briefed on the UFO subject? Absolutely not. I contend that asserting there has been a 72-year cover-up on the UFO subject is a sentiment of fact. Here's what Chris Mellon had to say regarding him and Elizondo's effort to get the UFO data up the chain of command within the Department of Defense to the number one guy of the Department of Defense, who was the Secretary of Defense of the time, named James Mattis.
When Lou Elizondo, my colleague, was still in the Pentagon running the UFO investigation, I worked with him, introduced him to two individuals who are direct reports to General Mattis. We were unable to get that on the Secretary's agenda. Ultimately, Lou concluded, and I concluded, that the only way to make progress on this issue was from the outside, to take the information to the public and the Congress. That's what this show is about, and that's what these military pilots are helping us with.
And the reason Chris Mellon and Elizondo wanted to get that data up to James Mattis was so that Mr. Mattis himself could make an informed decision regarding the national security implications of the UFO presence. Now look, if the Secretary of Defense was being insulated from the UFO presence, then it really is not a big stretch to say that the President of the United States was also being insulated from the knowledge that the U.S. government ultimately had on the UFO presence. One of the reasons Luis Elizondo resigned in protest from being the head of ATIP in the Pentagon is because he saw firsthand that the UFO presence was only increasing. And he wanted the American people to be informed of that so that the American people could express their opinion on what should be done about these anomalous aerial vehicle incursions into highly restricted military airspace. Ironically, and perhaps sadly, the biggest driving force for disclosure has been the phenomenon itself. These increased visitations by this phenomenon, whatever its origin may be, has, quite frankly, forced the issue. A new article dropped today by Luis Elizondo titled, Luis Elizondo, Why is the government finally admitting UFOs are real, and why should we pay attention? There is an excerpt in that article that supports my contention regarding what the number one driving force is behind disclosure. Equally shocking to most was the fact that these incidents were not isolated and continued for at least a decade later and involved other carrier battle groups around the world. As the American people became increasingly aware that this was not a plot for a science fiction movie, but were real events, the U.S. government was forced to respond. Here, Chris Mellon touches on that fact.
And we're not the only country who's having these encounters.
Absolutely not. And in fact, as our investigation unfolds over the first 6 episodes this season, we're going to be presenting information from a NATO ally that's been having very similar experiences.
According to Chris Mellon, there are 2 leading hypotheses as to what the origin of UFOs are. One of those hypotheses is that UFOs are non-human technology. Another is that an adversary has leapfrogged the United States in terms of military technology. However, I should point out that there are critics who will assert that there are other good hypotheses to keep on the table, such as 737s in the distance, various misidentifications, weather phenomena, and even birds. What's that I hear? I hear UAP. I will say this, however, as the United States and other nation states continue to release data on this presence, I think that it's going to become even more clear that the only 2 serious hypotheses that are going to remain on the table are indeed either of non-human origin, or a nation state or nation states have simply achieved a technological breakthrough that most nations on the planet have not. So there's no doubt that President Trump will be talking about this anomalous presence more and more as time goes on. I also anticipate that various world leaders will be giving their opinion on what this anomalous presence is and what it means for humanity. There is also no doubt that the UFO subject will become a major discussion amongst the presidential hopefuls. Get ready, because in 2020, in the presidential debates, they're going to some extent, be talking about UFOs. We live in a new world. The only advice I can give you is to ensure that you have a large reserve of popcorn, because in the coming months and years, you will absolutely need it. And here's a retweet by Danny Silva that occurred today by Anthony LePay, executive producer of Unidentified, the docuseries. I can't prove it, it's dealing with classified info, but it's my unofficial opinion that it's likely that a chain of events you will see unfold in the next episode of Unidentified led directly to this. And of course, he's linking to the Politico article talking about President Trump being briefed on UFOs. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you'd like to support this channel, you can check out my merch shop where I sell t-shirts. Link is in the description below, or you can even become a patron. Or you could just slap a like on this bad boy, and I'll appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.